Okay, would everyone please take their seats and settle in? Just a reminder, when we gather in this very important space as a community, every time we do, it's unique. It only happens once. So while you may be often distracted by what's on your phones, I ask that you set aside all of that and participate and engage in this morning's assembly. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to have some students come up and get our assembly started.
Welcome to today's assembly. My name is Mavit Yagarajan, and I'm in Form 2.
My name is Riley Anderson, and I'm in Form 4.
My name is Arthur Tittman, and I'm also in Form 4. We would like to thank the Conrad family for supporting today's program through the Christopher Conrad Class of '91 Fund for Social Justice. This fund was established to support KO's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, including faculty professional development, student projects, curriculum development, and visiting speakers and artists. Today's program is made possible through their support. Thank you.
Today, we are excited to welcome Chris George to Kingswood, Oxford. Chris George served as the Executive Director of Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services, known as IRIS, for 18 years. I'm personally interested in immigration and refugee law because I believe everyone should have a place to call home.
I'm interested in refugees and immigration because I believe that we are in a privileged position where we have the ability to help so many people, and I don't think that we see that enough.
The topic of refugees and immigration is important to me because I want to become an immigration lawyer one day. Because USA is considered as a land of immigration, it provides opportunities for peoples from different countries to come here and to work and contribute to this country's growth. In this leadership role, Chris helped IRIS become a National Welcome Corps private sponsorship organization in Connecticut's largest refugee resettlement agency, working with community groups and CT and nationwide to welcome thousands of refugees and immigrants to their new homes.
Chris's passion for serving others started in 1977 when he became a Peace Corps volunteer in Muscat, Oman. Over the course of his 12 years of experience in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, he held leadership roles at Save the Children and American Friends Service Committee. Since then, he has only grown more devoted to helping those in need. In addition to this, Chris negotiated the terms of the first fact-finding mission to Syria and Iran as Executive Director of Human Rights Watch Middle East.
Chris is a driven and compassionate leader whose work has positively impacted countless lives. His commitment to helping others has made him an invaluable asset to IRIS, and he will continue to serve communities by volunteering for the organization he once led. Please join us in welcoming Chris George to KO.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Thank you to the Conrad family for making this possible. Thank you to Kingswood Oxford for inviting me. And thanks to all of you for coming to this assembly, although, did you really have an option? No. So, as you heard in the introduction, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. Before that, a little bit about me, I was born in Waterloo, Iowa. I grew up in a place called Montclair, New Jersey. Played lacrosse on a pretty good team, got a scholarship to go to a really good school, graduated in 1977, and decided I wanted to see the world, and I joined the Peace Corps. Anyone heard of this organization called the Peace Corps? Raise your hand if you've heard of it. Great. Something must be going well at this school. Any returned Peace Corps volunteers in the audience? Whoa, where'd you serve? Philippines, terrific. And Guatemala, great. Anyone else? Philippines, Guatemala. If any of you are interested in joining the Peace Corps, talk to me afterwards, and I can give you some tips. My 2 sisters were Peace Corps volunteers, and one of my children, daughter, was a Peace Corps volunteer, so we're a big Peace Corps family. Peace Corps does a terrific job of teaching the volunteers the language and the culture of the country where they're going to work before they get started. So my group was met at the airport in a place called Muscat, Oman. That's right, I served in a country called the Sultanate of Oman. Anyone been there? What? Have you really? Terrific, we'll have to talk too. We were met by the Peace Corps director, whisked away to a sleepy little fishing village called Sohar in Oman, and for the next 3 months, we studied Arabic. I didn't know a word of Arabic before joining the Peace Corps. That's the language of Oman. Peace Corps volunteers had to learn the language and the culture. So for the next 3 months, 6 days a week, 7 hours a day, I studied Arabic. And it was a great foundation for the language. But for some strange reason, Peace Corps did not teach us the Arabic word for volunteer. You'd think they would have. I mean, after all, we were Peace Corps volunteers. But I realized that I was missing that important vocabulary word. My first week on the job, and a coworker, an Omani, his name was Rashid, asks me, he said to me in my Omani name, which was Khamis. Khamis means Thursday. Funny name, I know. He said, Ya Khamis, Qadesh ma'ashak. Are there any Arabic speakers in the audience who can keep me honest when I speak a little Arabic? No. No? No. But you must teach Arabic here, don't you? We'll have to talk about that. So, if you've traveled around the world, you might have learned that Americans are maybe the most uptight people about talking about personal finances and how much somebody makes. This guy had absolutely no qualms about asking me how much my salary is. Qadesh ma'ashik, he said. So, I didn't know the word for volunteer. But you all know that when you're learning a foreign language and you don't know the exact word for something, you kind of talk your way around it, right? So I said to Rashid, what do you call someone who works without getting a salary? Rashid says, without any hesitation, Majnoon. Boom. I think I've learned the word for volunteer. So I whip out my little notepad that I kept in my breast pocket all the time, and I write down Majnoon, right to left. And then, again, this is how you learn a new word when you're learning a new language. I used it the rest of the day. And I walk around the work site telling everybody, with great pride, because I was a proud Peace Corps volunteer, Ana Majnoon. Ana Majnoon. Ana Majnoon. That evening, I go to my tent, turn on my kerosene lantern, I pull out my Arabic, English, Arabic dictionary, I flip through the pages and I look up Majnoon, and it means crazy, stupid, lunatic. Maybe you have to be a little crazy to be a volunteer for 2 years. But anyway, you get what you ask for. I later continued to work in the Middle East, a couple of years in Lebanon, a total of 12 years in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Actually lived in Gaza with my wife and one-year-old daughter, Susanna, for 2 years. And after working in the Middle East for many years, I finally returned to the United States. But while in the Middle East, I spent a lot of time in refugee camps. Refugee camps in southeastern Turkey, Lebanon, Gaza, West Bank, also a couple of refugee camps in Africa. And I have to tell you, my most powerful and profound memory of visiting refugee camps, whether they were huge refugee camps in Pakistan for Afghan refugees, or southeastern Turkey for Iraqi refugees, or Palestinian refugees, what I remember most from visiting those refugee camps, it's probably not what you're thinking. Rows and rows, thousands of tents. Pretty powerful image. No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that overwhelming, sickening smell of raw sewage running down the street. It wasn't even the despair on people's faces. What I remember most from visiting refugee camps where people had so little and had lost so much, what I remember most was the amazing hospitality that refugees showed me. I mean, they knew I was coming from the wealthiest, most powerful country on earth. But when I visited, the most important thing to them was to show me hospitality. They'd put on a pot of water to make some coffee or tea. They'd rustle up their last bit of food to serve to me. They would grab what little money they had and sent their oldest son down the street to buy a package of cookies to serve me. They'd find a chair for me to sit in, not realizing I had learned to sit on the floor as a Peace Corps volunteer. They gave me a lesson in hospitality and generosity that I have never forgotten. And I would say to them, as I was sipping that too sweet tea or cardamom-flavored coffee, or eating dates with my right hand only, having been taught as a Peace Corps volunteer, only your right hand. I would say to them, إذا تجوا للولايات المتحدة لازم تزوروني أريد أضايفكم زي أنتم ضايفتوني. If you ever come to the United States, please visit me, because I want to show you the hospitality that you have shown me. This was like 30 years ago. I had no idea what I was going to be doing later. But as fate would have it, when I returned to the United States, and for the past 18 years or so, my job has been to welcome refugees. Who knows? Maybe the friends and relatives of the people who welcomed me. Welcome refugees to the United States and help them get started on their new lives. I keep using this word refugee, refugee, refugee over and over again. Let's begin at the beginning with a definition. What is a refugee? And it's probably been used very loosely and incorrectly over the years by people who should know better. But I'll tell you now, the international law definition of a refugee, and teachers assured me you'll all be tested on this later, the international law definition of a refugee is a person who has been forced to flee their home country because of persecution. So two key elements. They have left their home country, they've crossed an international border. Why? Because of persecution. Persecution because of their race, their religion, their nationality, their political opinion, or their membership in a particular social group. That is the international law definition of a refugee, and that is the definition of a refugee that the United States government embraces. Guess how many refugees there are in the world today who meet that definition? 35 million. It's the population of the state of Connecticut. Right, 3.3 million. So more than 10 times the population of the state of Connecticut is the total number of refugees in the world. What happens to them when they flee their country and go to another country? Well, they'll check in with the United Nations. They might stay in a refugee camp. Or if they brought a little money with them, they might rent an apartment somewhere on the outskirts of the capital area, and they'll wait and wait and wait. What are they waiting for? Well, they're waiting for that persecution to end so they can go home. But usually it doesn't end anytime soon. We've welcomed refugees here in Connecticut that have spent 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years in refugee camps. We've welcomed people here in Connecticut that were born in refugee camps. Now, the United States government, along with some other governments around the world, have decided we are going to help a tiny fraction of these 35 million refugees. We're going to invite them to our countries and let them become citizens of our countries and start new lives here. In fact, you might be surprised to know, since the United States foreign policy is so often criticized, the United States historically has had the largest refugee resettlement program in the world. In fact, most years, the United States invites more refugees to come to this country than all of the other 25, 30 or so governments with refugee programs put together. And that's about 80,000 refugees a year. Not every U.S. administration thinks that refugee resettlement is one of our finest traditions. There are some elected members of government and administrations who have felt we should not be bringing so many refugees to the United States. And the reason they often give is because refugees are coming from dangerous places. And we don't know enough about them to be sure they're not coming for the wrong reasons. So for the past 6 years or so, I've taken a look at that issue of security and refugees, and I put together this presentation that you all are going to help me with that will show you the vetting process, the security selection and vetting process that refugees from Syria go through before they are invited to come to the United States. So we are going to pretend that we are going to the Zaatari refugee camp, huge refugee camp on the border. It's in Jordan, on the border with Syria. I am going to play the part of a U.S. government official, first someone from the Department of State. That's why I'm wearing a tie. First someone from the Department of State, and then someone from the Department of Homeland Security. I'm going to play the part of a U.S. government official, and I'm going to ask some of your experienced actors to play the parts of Syrian refugees. So, first stop, where's my official clipboard? Here it is. First stop is the United Nations office, UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee. That's the UN agency that's responsible for refugees. I'm going to visit them and ask them for the list of the most vulnerable refugees in their camp who the U.S. government could consider for resettling in the United States, maybe even Connecticut. So, where's my UNHCR official? Here we go, come on. Come on, up here. Yeah, should have told you to sit in the front row. All right, round of applause. Grab that microphone. Grab that microphone. There we go. He's appropriately wearing blue. It doesn't clash with the cap, does it? No, not so bad. Okay, so, all right, Mr. UNHCR official, I'm from the Department of State. I'd like a list of some families that we could consider for resettling in the United States.
Well, how about the most educated refugee families?
No, I didn't say the most educated. I said those are most in need. I mean, I'm sure there are some countries that want to cherry pick the most educated refugees, but that's not the policy of the United States.
How about the ones that speak the best English?
No. Look, I am sure there are some people who work in refugee resettlement who would love to welcome only those who speak English. Wouldn't have to hire so many translators, it wouldn't be so difficult. But that is not a selection criterion.
Well, how about the refugees that are the most employable?
Again, employability would be a terrific thing to have for a refugee coming to the United States. But the definition of a refugee is really what we're looking for. And on top of that, we'd like to get families that really desperately need to be resettled. Think of the inscription on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. It doesn't say give me your educated, most employable, and English-speaking. So, may I have that list, please? Yes. Thank you very much. You can put that microphone, you can give that microphone right here. Thanks. I know some people like to keep the hat. Thanks for giving it back. Okay, so I've got a refugee family, Fatima, Abdullah, and their 4-year-old daughter, Selwa. Please, come up here. All right. Selwa, you're 4 years old. I know. Who casted this group? Selwa, you can stand over here, please. There we go. Fatima and Abdullah, thank you very much. So Fatima and Abdullah, you're from the city of Holmes. I see that you've already been interviewed 4 times, 4 preliminary interviews. Okay. And I've got quite a file on you already. Abdullah, I understand that you were a baker. Is that right?
Yeah, I was one of the most famous bakers in all of Syria. People would just come to my bakery in Homs just for my sesame seed cookies. My sesame seed cookies were the best. The bakery was damaged during the early days of the war. I repaired it and kept on working. Then a huge bomb blew up most of the building and destroyed the oven. I had no choice but to close the bakery.
Okay. Thank you, Abdullah. You were a baker. Bakery was damaged initially. You repaired it. Later, it was blown up, destroying the oven. You could not repair it after that. And since then, you've been out of work. Okay. Thank you, Abdullah. Fatima, I understand that you were a student. You were studying to be an English teacher, following in the footsteps of your parents, who were both English professors at the local university. Fatima, you were going to school there, but just for 4 months at the university before artillery shells landed on campus, destroying some buildings, injuring students. The university shut down. That was the end of your higher education. I'm sorry, Fatima. I'm sorry to hear that. Fatima, can you tell me about your 4-year-old daughter, Selwa?
Yes, this is our daughter, Selwa. She has been traumatized. Last summer, when she was playing in the street, a barrel bomb was dropped near her, and she saw 3 of her friends killed. She was not physically injured, but she has been mentally affected. Selwa used to be a very talkative child. She was very smart and very active, and even a little mischievous. Now she doesn't talk much at all. She has nightmares every night. She is not eating well. We are worried sick about her.
I'm sorry. Barrel bombs were used by the Syrian government. Horrible weapons, indiscriminate weapons, and they used them to target civilians. Selwa was lucky. She wasn't physically injured, but 3 of her neighbors were killed, and she saw that, and it traumatized her. Okay, so I am trying to piece together the chronology here of your stories. After the bakery was destroyed, you did not leave Holmes. You stayed on. And then after your university was shut down, you still continued to stay on. A barrel bomb blew up in your neighborhood, killing 3 of your neighbors. You still held on and stayed in your home. What was the last straw? What happened that made you decide, that tough decision for any refugee, that made you decide that you had to leave?
It happened in November of last year. Selwa was at her grandmother's house next door. Abdullah was looking for day labor. I was alone. Syrian government soldiers came to the house. They broke down the door and let themselves in. They grabbed me and shouted at me. They wanted to know where my brother was hiding. My brother ran away months ago. He didn't want to join the army. They wanted to arrest him, but I had no idea where he was hiding. They didn't believe me, and they took me away to their military base. They threatened to torture me. They let me go, but they said that they would return.
She was lucky. She got home. She told Abdullah what had happened. Abdullah said, "We're out of here." They had had bags packed for months. They quickly grabbed their valuables, some money, their passports, and they called the taxi. They wanted to go the short way to Lebanon. The road was too dangerous. They took the long route to Jordan. They arrived at the border. They got out of the taxi, carrying suitcases, carrying Selwa, crossing the border. How many times have we seen this sight? Afghans, Ukrainians, Gazans. They crossed into Jordan. They caught another taxi there that took them to the Zaatari refugee camp. And there they were met by a United Nations official who said, "Welcome to the Zaatari camp. You can stay in tent number 48, and rations are twice a week." So, I need your passports, Abdullah. Could you please, I've got the file here. Thank you. Thank you for the passports. We'll put them in the file. We need your fingerprints, all of you. Fingerprints, 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 fingerprints. We're going to pull all of this information together, plus the new information that we've gathered today. And we are going to pass all of this to the FBI forensics experts who will go over all of these documents. We've got photographs in here. We've got birth certificates. We've got an English. We've got a high school diploma, all sorts of things in here. Please, FBI, review this. I'll check back with you, make sure I don't forget. And this will be your report. All right. Thank you very much. This is the end of today's interview. This is just a little snippet of what would typically be a 3-hour interview, maybe even longer. You can go back to your tent. Don't call us. We'll call you. Thank you very much. Whoa. Keep it. And they wait. And they wait. And they wait. 6 months later, you're called back again. Let's go. Fatima, Abdullah, Selwa. All right. Okay. My State Department colleague interviewed you 6 months ago. I'm from the Department of Homeland Security. This is going to feel more like an interrogation than an interview. I need some information. I want all of your addresses and cell phone numbers for yourself and all of your relatives and all of your friends. We'll supply you with paper. You can fill out all those forms over the break. Cell phones and addresses that you've ever had. All of your friends and all of your relatives. I need some dates and details. When did that barrel bomb drop on your neighborhood? Day and time. Who was killed by that barrel bomb? How about the artillery barrage that hit the university campus? When did that happen? How many artillery shells? What buildings were damaged? Were any students injured? What were their names? And what about the bakery? I need the date that it was first damaged, and I need the date that the bomb fell on your bakery and made it completely inoperable. All of this information will be pulled together with what we gathered the first time. We'll ask them some of the same questions that we asked them the first time, and then we'll say, okay, you can go back to your tent. Don't call us, we'll call you. And they go back, and they wait. Okay. 6 months later, they're called back again. Whoop, back again. It's now been a year. The FBI is working on examining all of their documents. All of the information that we gathered, names, addresses, phone numbers, is all been put into CIA, FBI, international terrorist watch list databases. We'll even check with countries that we have relations with to see if any connections are made between their phone numbers and phone numbers of known terrorists or terrorist organizations. All of this takes some time, but it's happening behind the scenes. Okay, the FBI found a wedding photograph in the file. Can you pull that wedding photograph, please? And they circled some people who were at your wedding party. We need you to identify those people. Again, you can do that during the break. Some details about the university course that you attend, the school that you attended, the university. The names of all of your courses that you were enrolled in, the names of all of your professors, the names of all of your friends. Were you a member of any group or society or club? Did you go out and demonstrate against the government? We know that Abdullah did. In fact, there's a photograph of Abdullah in a demonstration on the front page of the Damascus Daily. Another reason why he's afraid to go back to Syria. He feels he's a marked man. And Abdullah, your bakery. Can you give us some idea of your best customers? Who are your suppliers? Any invoices or advertisements for the bakery? You say you were famous for sesame seed cookies. What were the other bakers in town famous for? And what were their names? And what were their addresses? All of this information is pulled together. We ask the same questions we asked in the first interview and in the second interview to see if their answers are consistent. Thank you. You can go back to your tent. It's now been a year. Back again, 6 months later. Okay, Abdullah. We have some reliable information from our security sources that in April of 2016, there was a group of terrorists hiding in the basement of your bakery. Hang on. Time out. I'll tell you why this is so important. In 2001, the United States Congress passed a bill called the Patriot Act. And in the Patriot Act, there is a clause that is called the Material Support Bar. And what that means is anyone, even a deserving refugee, anyone who has been found to have given material support, assistance, any kind of support, to a terrorist or a terrorist organization, determined by the U.S. government. Anyone who's given material support to a terrorist or a terrorist organization will be barred, material support bar, will be barred from coming into the United States. So this bit of information that we have uncovered is critical. Abdullah, what do you have to say about this?
But the bakery was boarded in March of 2016. I stopped going there. It was too dangerous to go to that part of the city. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't even check on it. You can't blame me for something I didn't know about.
We don't take chances. I'm sorry, Abdullah, Fatima, you're off the list. We will not continue with the selection process. That would happen. In fact, that is a true story. We don't take chances with the vetting process for refugees. But in this case, we are going to pretend that that information did not exist, because I want to bring this family through the vetting process and to the United States so we can talk a little bit about resettlement. So we'll say the CIA actually realized it was a different bakery. In fact, you don't even have a basement in your bakery. You guys are okay. The process will continue. Fatima, the day that soldiers came to your house, what kind of vehicles did they come in? Where did they park them in front of your house? How many soldiers came into your house? What kind of uniforms did they have on? What kind of insignia did they have? Their accent. Were they from Damascus? Were they from Aleppo? Were they from Homs? Did you recognize any of them? What did they say to you in your house? Where did they take you in your house? After how many minutes did they take you to their cars and then drive you to the barracks on the outskirts of town? Were you blindfolded? What vehicle did you sit in? How long was the drive? Describe the barracks. What kind of a room were you in? Were you sitting on the floor? Were you sitting in a chair? Were you blindfolded there? What did they say to you? And I'm sorry, Fatima, how did they say they were going to torture you? The U.S. government vetting process for refugees, what you've seen today, is based on facts and interviews with actual Department of Homeland Security vetters and refugees. The U.S. government vetting process for refugees is the most rigorous in the world. It is by far the hardest way for anyone outside the country to come to the U.S. It is, as you've seen today, deeply personal. It can re-traumatize. It leaves no stone unturned. It involves all of our intelligence agencies and intelligence agencies of governments we have relations with. And it can take 2, 3, 4 years. Let's check with the FBI and see what they've got. Your microphone, please. FBI forensics, you've had couple of years now to go through all the documents. What have you found?
So we checked all the documents. They're all authentic. No forgeries, nothing fraudulent. They are clean.
Good. All right. You can go back and wait. Don't call us, we'll call you. And we're calling you. You've been selected. All right, you have made it through the security vetting process. The next step is to go through health screening. We look for communicable diseases that could be a public health risk, and if they pass through that, they're then told they are going to be resettled in the United States. And at this point, we ask Fatima and Abdullah, do you have a friend or a relative somewhere in the United States who could help resettle you? A good common sense policy of the US government. Like an Uncle Ahmed in Detroit, or maybe a cousin Miriam in Montana. Anyone? No? Okay. Then you're going to be arbitrarily assigned to a state, maybe one you've never even heard of, or you cannot pronounce. You're going to Connecticut. Pack your bags. And while they're packing their bags, over here in Connecticut at Iris. Comes up an email on my computer. It says, lovely family of, well, it's State Department, so it won't say lovely family of three. So family of three from Syria is arriving in, how much time do we usually get? 2, 3 weeks, something like that. We need to go out, find an apartment, furnish it with donated furniture, stock the kitchen with 3 or 4 days worth of food, prepare for this family's arrival. It's not easy finding an apartment. In fact, I think we have a case manager and a landlord here who can give us an idea of the difficulty in finding an apartment for refugees. Where are they? Hello, come up to the front, please. And I've often made these phone calls. All right. All right, are you the landlord? Okay, landlord, take your microphone. Okay, case manager, take your microphone. All right, so what's it like trying to get an apartment for refugees?
Hi, I'm interested in the 2-bedroom apartment on State Street.
Is this apartment for you or for someone else?
Actually, it's for refugees. I work with IRIS, a local refugee resettlement agency. It's a family of 3 from Syria, and they...
Refugees? I don't know.
These are people who have been selected and vetted by the Department of Homeland Security. They are fully documented, totally legal, and they will make great tenants.
Well, do they have a credit history?
They have an amazing history, but they do not have a credit history. Sorry.
Do they have a job?
Well, not yet, but we will make sure they get a job and pay their rent.
Do they at least speak English?
Unfortunately, no. They speak Arabic, but we will help with the translation, and we will make sure they learn English very soon.
Can I at least meet them?
Sorry, they haven't arrived yet. We need to rent and set up the apartment before they arrive.
We ask a lot of landlords, and often they might just hang up on me. Thank you, guys. Or maybe if I'm on the line a little bit longer, I can start humming the national anthem, ask them if they've ever visited the Statue of Liberty, and before you know it, the landlord will say, you know what, okay, I'll rent to these new Americans. In fact, they might even go further and say, can I bring them my favorite tuna casserole when they arrive? You all are packing your bags, getting ready to go. One more thing needs to be done. You need to sign this promissory note that says you are going to repay the cost of travel from Amman, Jordan to JFK. That was my reaction when I first heard about that. Like, what? Are you serious? This family has no money. You've heard Abdullah's story about losing his bakery. He tried to get day labor when he was in the refugee camp in Jordan. He was arrested 3 times by Jordanian police because refugees are not allowed outside the camp. They're deep in debt, have absolutely no money. The United States government can't spring for, I don't know, $3,000 to bring this family here? No, we don't. Refugees have to pay their way to come to the United States. So you sign the loan agreement, and before you know it, they arrive at JFK. They're met by someone from the United Nations, actually someone from the International Organization of Migration. How are they spotted? Well, they're carrying all of their documents in an IOM bag like this. Maybe you've been to the airport and you've seen people carrying bags like this. And they're put into a minivan. They zip up 95, always get stuck in traffic. They arrive late at the IRIS office, maybe the IRIS office in Hartford. There is an IRIS office in Hartford now. Maybe the IRIS office in New Haven. They're welcomed by a case manager and volunteers, maybe an interpreter who speaks Arabic. Welcome to Connecticut. Welcome to the United States. Welcome to Iris. The next day, after they've had that culturally appropriate hot meal, what do you mean culturally appropriate hot meal? Did I forget to mention that one of the most important ways a refugee agency needs to prepare for the arrival of a refugee family is to find someone in the neighborhood who can cook a culturally appropriate hot meal? He's smiling, he's thinking, you mean like McDonald's Happy Meals? No, culturally appropriate to the Syrian culture. And more often than not, it's Syrian refugees who've arrived the months or years prior. You have that culturally appropriate hot meal, you have a good night's sleep, and then the next day, our case manager brings you to the office, sits you down, and goes over the program. All right, first things first, health care. We understand Selwa's been traumatized. We're lucky. At the nearby hospital, we have an Arabic-speaking child psychiatrist. Fatima and Abdullah, you have a lot of serious health problems that you've put on the back burner because you've been so worried about little Selwa. Put your hand here, Abdullah. Abdullah, put your hand. Yeah, put your hand here. Yeah. He has a terrible abscess tooth. No offense, UNHCR, but you have absolutely no dental services in your refugee camp. We're going to take care of the abscess tooth. Fatima's got a slew of health issues that she has put off. We'll take care of those. Health, first things first. Then we're going to enroll Selwa in school, and we're going to help you learn English, and we're going to help you get a job. Abdullah is determined to open his own bakery. And in time, he probably will. But his first job offer is a dishwasher at Archie Moore's Bar and Grill in New Haven. Raise your hand if you've been to Archie Moore's. Yeah. Wow, almost as many people interested in Peace Corps. He is thinking to himself, oh my gosh, I didn't come to the United States to be a dishwasher. And when Fatima is offered a job as a hotel housekeeper, she's crushed because she wanted to be an English language professor. That is the story of so many immigrants and refugees coming to the United States. Accomplished, professional, successful people in their home country having to accept something several rungs lower on the economic, social status ladder. But they do it. They do it anyway because they know they have to make money to cover their rent because assistance from the US government and from the Refugee Agency doesn't last that long. But before you know it, Abdullah is promoted to assistant cook. True story, there is a refugee from Syria who was hired by Archie Moore's as a dishwasher. A year later, if you go there and look at the blackboard, soup of the day, Ramez Syrian lentil soup. And one day, Ramez will have his own restaurant. So Abdullah's doing well. No one is happier than Fatima because she could leave her job as a hotel housekeeper and go to the local community college to study English. Hopefully her first job will be better paid. So they're doing pretty well. But let's check on Selwa. No one better to ask than Selwa's teacher. Selwa's teacher, stand up and present, please.
Sure.
How is Selwa doing?
Selwa is not a Majanoon. In fact, she is like a sponge. She's learning English so quickly. She plays beautifully with the other children. She's an absolute delight to have in class. In fact, tomorrow she will be named our Student of the Month for April.
Wow, that is great. Thank you very much.
Let's check in with Selwa. Selwa, how are you doing?
Hi, I am Selwa. I am from Syria. I like my school and I have lots of friends. The teachers are nice. I translate for my mother and father all the time. I used to have bad dreams, but I am better now.
That's great. Welcoming refugees welcoming people who have suffered persecution from all over the world, welcoming them to the United States and helping them start new lives is our oldest, most noble national tradition. The Statue of Liberty is the symbol of this great tradition. Albert Einstein is the poster child for refugee resettlement. Yes, Albert Einstein was a refugee. And as far as I know, the Statue of Liberty still stands, and it will stand for that great message that we project to the world, that this country will always welcome refugees. Refugees like this lovely family from Syria. Thank you all very much, and thank you to our actors. All right. I think I have conveniently left 1 minute for questions. A few minutes for questions. I'll throw you the mic. Anyone have any questions at all about anything? Here we go. Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. Here's your microphone. Stand up, please. Okay.
In that scenario where the CIA says, or whatever, you know, the terrorists are in your basement, and then the father says, no, they weren't, no, they weren't. Is there any way to contest that and provide documentation? Or does the U.S. say, it's our intelligence, I don't care, you know, too bad?
You got that right. When in doubt, they're off the list. And you know, I've run that scenario by people who have vetted refugees, and they said, absolutely, there'd be no doubt. Is there an appeal process? Maybe. But there are 35 million refugees in the world. The tiniest fraction are able to enter the resettlement program. There are millions waiting. Why take a chance when there are so many others with squeaky clean backgrounds and records? Any other questions? Here we go. Stand up, please.
In your example, the landlord asked if they spoke English. Is it legal for them to discriminate against people who don't speak English?
Good question. It is illegal to discriminate on the basis of language. The landlord was just worried about communicating with them, which is a legitimate concern. We assure landlords, even though they don't speak English, we have a case manager. Where's that case manager? Stand-up case manager. We have a case manager. Yes, we have a case manager who you can call. Here's his cell phone number. Call him anytime, night or day, if you've got a problem with the tenants. So we tell tenants, it's got the best of both worlds. You got incredible tenants who are going to take their shoes off at the door before they enter your apartment and take really good care of it. No dogs. Refugees do not come with dogs that scratch floors, do they? No. And you've got a case manager from a professional refugee resettlement agency who can help troubleshoot and solve problems. Anything else? Any other questions? Way back there, here's the mic. Stand up and project. Can the Department of Homeland Security really expect refugees to answer all the questions about addresses, and I'll add phone numbers and social media accounts? Yes. I mean, if somebody asked me to sit down and write down all the addresses, I'm 70 years old, all the addresses where I've lived all my life, it might take some research, and I might have to talk to my brother who's got a better memory than I, but yeah, I'd be able to do it. And it's important information, addresses and phone numbers. And many people have been held up in the screening process because a phone number on their list is too close or maybe the same as the phone number that was used by some people doing bad things. Any other questions? Yes, right here. Actually, you're an actor. Let's give this guy a chance.
So you mentioned a lot about how you guys help refugees, and you mentioned the definition of what a refugee is. Do you have any opinions on how that definition could actually be hurting more people and keep preventing people from getting the services that they need? I guess, do you have any alternate definitions that you would have, or? Yeah.
Don't know exactly what you're getting at, but there have been attempts to broaden the definition to include climate refugees, people who have been forced to flee their home country because of climate change. There have been attempts to broaden the definition to include socioeconomic refugees, people who have been forced to flee their country because they live in a place where the economy is in shambles, there's absolutely no chance to make a living, the government doesn't give a damn, and they need to get out. But for now, the definition of a refugee is, as I stated, someone who has suffered persecution, and persecution because you're a member of one of those classes due to your race, religion, your nationality, your political opinion, or your membership in a particular social group. That last category has been expanded to include a lot of other people. And sometimes some administrations will try to contract that category to keep some people out. I know a lot of you people are wondering, well, what about these people who are crossing the southern border? People who've taken issues into their own hands. People who do not have an opportunity to check in at a United Nations office and get on a list and to be interviewed by the US government. People whose lives are in danger, their children are in danger, and they said, I'm going to take my chances, cross the border, enter the United States, surrender to the border people, and say, I want to apply for refugee status in the United States. Applying for refugee status is the same as applying for asylum. Thank you all very much. Good luck.
In a second, Mr. Dillow will excuse us, but I just wanted you to know that members of IRIS are up here, up front, with all kinds of information. If faculty, staff, or students would like to stay after and talk with them, you may. And if you have to go to class, that's fine. I can give you their contact information. So here's Mr. Dillow.
Thank you, Mrs. Loeb. And Chris, on behalf of Kingswood Oxford School, I just wanted to thank you again. Students and faculty and staff, I think it's really a privilege for us to hear from someone like Chris George and learn about the process of what it takes for a refugee to come to a place like the United States. And I hope for all of us here, it also is a reminder for us that we take for granted a lot of the simple things in life, like a roof over our head, and drinking water, and the privilege of being able to come to school and learn even, when there's so many millions in the world for whom just being able to do those things is such a struggle, and how wonderful it is that we have people like Chris George and the members of IRIS here, and hopefully some of you in the future that might say, that's something I want to help with, it's something I want to work with. Chris, one of our core values at our school is care beyond self. And on behalf of KO, I want to thank you for exemplifying that better than most people we talk to. And so thank you for being who you are and doing the great work that you do, and for sharing that with all of us. Let's give him another round of applause, please.
Thank you.
If you would like to come up and talk with members that are here, come on up. Otherwise, students, you are dismissed.